Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen demands I babysit since she had a family emergency. After that, am I the jerk for not attending my sister's wedding because of her dress code? And after that, am I the jerk for saying it's easy to be a perfect mom when you don't have kids? Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to make someone else babysit her kids. It's not like you'll have a choice when I drop them off without saying anything. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen demands I babysit since she had a family emergency. I, 37 male, and my wife, who's 33, have no kids. We live in a small 2-bedroom house with a second bedroom converted into a game room/office for us. My sister, who's 32, and brother-in-law, who's 35, have 2 kids, nephew, who's 8, and niece, who's 9. Both are great kids. We love them and would do absolutely anything for them. We've babysat for my sister and brother-in-law before and had no issues until recently. On April 7th, Good Friday, brother-in-law got a call that his sister, who's 28, was in a bad car accident along with 2 of her friends. She had to be airlifted to the hospital. They weren't sure if she was even going to make it, so family members were being called in to say goodbye and support the rest of the family. This happened across the state we live in. Sister texted me around 10:40ish that night asking if I was awake, then called to explain the situation. She then asked if I would babysit the kids over Easter weekend while they traveled across state to be with brother-in-law's family. I told her no, I couldn't. I work in a steel manufacturing plant, she knows this, on a rotary shift, and after Easter, on Monday, I would be starting the overnight shifts. I told her that I was going to sleep during the day on Saturday and Sunday to get accustomed to being on 3rd shift. When she asked if my wife would be willing, I again told her no, since she's going to be doing Easter stuff with her side of the family. When she asked why I couldn't just sleep in on Sunday, or why couldn't my wife take the kids with her to the Easter stuff, I snapped back at her, and I gave 3 reasons why. That 1, I wanted the weekend to adjust my shift and sleeping schedules, and couldn't do that in one day. 2, my wife wanted to spend Easter with her side of the family. And finally, that no is a complete sentence, and that's final. She got upset, said we'll talk later, and hung up. They took the kids, and on the way, sister texted me that I'm a jerk for not taking what they're going through to heart, for not helping them in the time of need, that it wouldn't have hurt me or my wife to miss a day of sleep or take the kids with her. And brother-in-law is really upset with us. He prays we don't have an emergency and need him because he'll say no, and he wants to sleep in. I haven't responded, and we're currently not speaking to each other. Going to add, when sister called, my wife was asleep to get up early in the morning to do her family things. Our parents live in another state. Our other brother lives in another country. I don't know why she didn't call any of their friends when I refused. So, am I the jerk for not babysitting my sister's kids in their time of need? Not the jerk. I don't get why the kids couldn't be with their parents. If OP's wife is expected to take the kids with her, why couldn't they go with their own mother? I know it's a worrying time, but, and I know this is going to sound harsh, the kids' parents won't be involved with medical procedures, so they'll have plenty of time and the kids might even be a welcome distraction. Not the jerk. I work nights, and if I don't call off, I can't adjust my sleep schedule on short notice. No way you could have kept the kids quiet for 5 to 8 hours, and that's assuming your wife could supervise them. You wouldn't be excused for calling out for an emergency for a non-relation. It boils down to, can you take the punishment for calling in, or would it jeopardize your employment status? If you aren't close to a write-up, then you should have called in to help out. Am I the jerk for not attending my sister's wedding because of her dress code? I, 18 female, recently decided I'm not attending my sister's, who's 21 female, wedding. My sister has her dream wedding planned. She's been dreaming of her wedding all her life and has everything down to the T. She has her cake, her venue, her dress, the bridesmaids' dresses, and the flower arrangements all prepared. She sat me and my sisters down to show us the dresses she wanted us to wear. They were cute, flowy pink gowns with pink lace around the neck area. We all loved them, but I had a problem. They were short-sleeved. Now, her wedding is in the summer, so short sleeves are kind of a must-have, but I have scars all down my arms and do not want them to be on show at the wedding. I pulled her aside and asked if I could get a dress with sleeves or if I could wear sleeved gloves. She said no, and that she wants everyone to look the same, so I couldn't wear sleeves or have a different dress. I said I wasn't comfortable having my arms on show around such a large amount of people and that you would see them in all the pictures. She asked if I could just put makeup on my arms, but I have keloid scars and makeup won't cover them at all. She then said if I wasn't going to cooperate, I just shouldn't come. She told my family I was being difficult and didn't want to obey the dress code because I wanted to be different. She sent out her invites a few weeks ago and messaged me asking why I haven't confirmed that I'm going. I said that I'm still not comfortable being in short sleeves and that I will just not attend since I don't want to ruin her perfect day by dressing differently. She complained, saying that she had already bought the dresses, and I said I'll give her the money for mine, but she didn't listen. I know I probably sound selfish and I shouldn't let my own issues be priority over my sister's wedding, but I don't like being in short sleeves and there's no other way to work around it. Edit. I did forget to add, I was not a bridesmaid. My sister wanted all the girls in our side of the family to wear the same dress as it's similar to hers. Not the jerk. You came up with a perfect solution with the gloves. Her not accepting it is because of some ridiculous perfectionist aesthetic that no one will even care about, and it's absurd. She'd rather have things look a certain way, again, that no one will notice except for her, than to have her sister at her wedding. She's making a bad choice. I'm sorry it's hurting you. Not the jerk. Why is it that weddings make perfectly nice people turn into selfish, entitled jerks? I always cringe when I hear dream wedding. It smacks of future bridezillas. Not the jerk. Dress codes are one thing, but this is a bit beyond. Who orders specific dresses and outfits and enforces the guests to wear them? That's very odd unless you were in the bridal party, but it sounds like you are not from what is shared in the post. Am I the jerk for saying it's easy to be a perfect mom when you don't have kids? I, 28 female, have a 2-year-old son. My brother, Tommy, 25 male, has been dating Gianna, 22 female, for a few months now. She's a little judgmental, not of me particularly, but in general. She babysits for other kids and constantly judges the parents. She says she'd never let her kids act the way the kids do. Sometimes it makes sense and I agree. Others, she claims that her future kids will never ever throw a tantrum. They'll accept no the first time, the only time. I've told her good luck with that when it comes to toddlers. My son is learning no and has appropriate consequences for tantrums, but he's learning. It'll happen. It's also important to note that Gia is infertile. She can't have kids without medical intervention or adoption. Saturday night, we went out for my dad's birthday dinner. I messed up and didn't prepare my toddler well enough. He got overstimulated and began melting down. I quickly took him out of the restaurant to calm him down before he could cause a scene. It took all of 5 minutes and we returned. He got food and everything was good. Gianna started on, "My future kids will never act like that in a restaurant." I ignored her. The next day, myself, Tommy, our parents, my son, and Gianna went to the mall for an event they were having. My son was playing in a structure and I had my eyes on him. My mom asked me a question and I turned to answer her. When I turned back, he was gone. Panic set in and myself, my parents, and Tommy, along with some people nearby, began helping me look. It only took a few minutes to find him and he was perfectly fine. He had seen a pretzel cart and wandered off. I was still pretty worked up, holding on to him for dear life. He had never wandered off before. My mom was reassuring me, saying it happened to her with both of us kids. Then I hear Gianna, "Why weren't you watching him?" I tried ignoring her. Then she said, "I would have never let him wander off." I was already so worked up and upset, I just snapped. I said, "It's easy being a perfect parent when you don't have kids. Come back to me when you do." Gianna got visibly upset. She then made Tommy take her home. Tommy and Gianna have both texted me telling me how insensitive that is since she can't have kids. To me, she talks about having kids all the time. So why is it different for me to say that? Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You weren't referring to her inability to have biological kids. You were referring to her inability to keep her mouth shut. Not the jerk. Tell her you said those things because you truly believe that she will be a mother someday and will realize what a jerk she's been. It's 2023. We don't parent shame. Not all wheelchair users can walk. So I'm at a theme park and I'm a full-time wheelchair user who cannot walk or stand. I won't name the park. As soon as management found out, they were angry and more than rectified the situation. But the story is funny in my opinion. It happened a few years ago. So one of the rides is in a building and has an area outside the entrance for pushchairs and those big strollers that some people bring to theme parks. My friend and I head to the entrance, and this young employee comes to me and says, "You just leave your wheelchair there." I look at him, and my friend is about to say something, and I catch their eye and wink. I wheel over to the area and sit there with my brakes on. My friend catches on and comes and stands next to me. The worker comes over and says, "You can go in now," seeing me not moving. I reply, "How? You told me to put my wheelchair here." He, not seeing what's happening, replies, "Yes, so you need to leave it here and then go in and get it after." I ask him how that'll work, and he sort of blinks at me confused, then walks over to a guest who has asked for help. Another worker who's older and has team leader on his badge comes over. The guy who has told me to sit there is still talking to another guest, and the older worker comes over and asks if I'm okay. I explained that the guy had told me to sit here in my chair, and so I did, and then he told me to head into the ride, but leaving my chair here, and how I'm confused as I can't walk or stand. This worker is mortified and tells me this is obviously not the park rules, and how no one is asked to leave their wheelchair there if they don't want to, and how I'm allowed in with my chair. The first worker comes over, and the supervisor/team leader asks him what he's on about, and how he can't tell wheelchair users to do this, etc. The younger guy said he was told to tell people they could leave their wheelchairs there, and we came to realize that he was just confused and thought everybody in wheelchairs could actually walk. The guy realizes his mistake and then realizes what I was trying to tell him earlier, and he's mortified, apologizing over and over. I explain how it's okay, and I'm glad he's realized what he said wasn't okay, but I can see that he had been confused, and it turned out he was very new. I head onto the ride, and as I exit, the supervisor comes over and refunds us our park entry tickets and has food and shop vouchers for myself and my friend. I explain how they didn't need to do this, and how I'm just glad the new guy found out his misunderstanding with me, who found it funny, and I had a bit of a fun time messing with him. This company doesn't offer bribes until it does. This happened a year or two ago. I had just returned from a long mission for my company in Indonesia. As soon as I could finish the paperwork, I could go on leave. I had about 3 days of report writing left to do. I had been invited to a BS meeting on the company ethos, which I had declined. The HR underling sent an email saying that it was obligatory, which I ignored. Anyway, the meeting started without me. Then the HR person came out and said I had to attend. Room is full of techies, engineers, and anyone else who was in the office at the time. PowerPoint display went on, company ethos, other stuff, and then HR. What to do if you are offered a bribe, which made me smile. Anyway, HR. What's funny? Me. Oh, nothing. HR. No, go on. So I asked if we were supposed to offer incentives in order to complete missions. Never, if you remember the PowerPoint we just worked through. So I quickly copy and pasted a section of my WhatsApp conversation with the missions officer, about 4 levels above HR underling, and sent it to HR underling's email. I just sent you something. She opened it and began to read. Missions manager was a sound guy who understands that in some countries, a little cash is the only way to make things function. Anyway, the email stated the case. I had a hire car, but I didn't have access to a driver all the time, and I was stuck in the hotel on weekends. Theoretically, you can use your home driving license to obtain an Indonesian driving license, and it should be straightforward. In reality, they see it as an opportunity to make some money and will happily make you wait for a year and do a driving test, unless you give a fat wad of banknotes in an envelope. 2 million Indonesian rupiah, about $130, but it's a lot to them. Mission manager says fine. I asked him, how can I put it through expenses? Missions manager, team building exercise, get a receipt. Code for make a fake one, which I did. I found a site on Google that let me make one. There are hundreds of sites like that. So I made one for 4 steak dinners with wine and loads of beer. I printed it out, messed it up, and then scanned it. It looked legit. Missions manager, looks good to me, approved. She was reading this on her laptop, but it was shared with the 70-inch screen behind her. She looked up and everyone was smiling. HR underling, okay, we'll break for coffee. I didn't come back. She didn't come looking for me. I went on vacation 2 days later. Entitled Stepfather is stalking us by watching our outside home surveillance camera that he installed. Me and my stepdad have always been quite close. He's always been supportive and always been there for me more than my own father has been. Regardless, me and my girlfriend moved into my grandmother's house just over a year ago to help her around the house a little more. Me and my girlfriend, both having relatively nice cars, parked in the driveway. I asked if he would install a camera onto the house to keep an eye on them. He did this for me. I offered him the money and he didn't charge me anything. I didn't think anything of it until last autumn. I'd gone to visit my friend for the day, who lives about 80 miles away. I'd come home at about 7 p.m., and as my grandma went to bed, me and my girlfriend decided to go out for a bit of a date night. I got a phone call from my stepdad around 9:30 p.m. asking if I was okay, as I wasn't home yet. I straight away knew he had checked the camera to see if I was home yet. I was fuming and told him I don't appreciate being clocked in and out. He took offense to this and thought I was being ungrateful. Since then, he hasn't really made any comments. But then a couple of months ago, me and my girlfriend had a baby. She was in the hospital for a while, and he kept checking when I was home from the hospital each evening. I know, because the minute my car got into the driveway, it was, "Don't forget to put this in your car for tomorrow." Or if I stayed out for a while later, I'd get, "When you get home, can you?" Which suggests he knew I wasn't. I really didn't want him watching me. So a few weeks ago, he made it quite obvious he had checked if I was in before coming to visit with my mom. Fuming, I unplugged the camera from the internet so that I could only access it when I needed to. I wanted to see how long it would take him to notice the problem. But instead, he's been in a funny mood for a few weeks. Today he came to inspect as it had gone down, and I openly and honestly told him I appreciate what he's done for us, but I don't want him stalking us. He threw a massive tantrum, accused me of being ungrateful, and tried guilt-tripping me by saying it's only because he cares. He then deleted it from his access. Or so he claimed anyway. I don't mind him having access. It helps in keeping an eye on my grandma if she ventures out or anything. But I'm a grown adult who doesn't need clocking in and out. It massively breaches data protection. It's weird. And what winds me up the most is him having a tantrum about it. Take his down and get your own. They're not hard to install. It just takes an afternoon. You should also check around your house for any additional ones. I caught Karen, my dad's girlfriend, snooping through his bank account on his computer, so I exposed her as a gold digger. I'm 16, female. My dad, who's 36, male, has been dating Delia, who's 42, female, for a year. He introduced us 3 months ago, and to keep it short, I don't like her. When my dad's not around, she's super passive-aggressive, and I feel like she's constantly trying to compete with me and be like his favorite, or the better one. I honestly don't know how to explain it. I can't really discuss it with someone because it's not like I have any proof or anything. Yesterday, she came here at 8 a.m. because the three of us were supposed to spend the day together. But my dad got called in for an emergency and said he'll be back by 2 p.m. No problem. I sat at the kitchen where you have full view of the living room, not because I was watching her, but because I've always sat there to do homework. If I looked at her, all I could see was her back, so I thought she was on her phone. I had to go to my room to get some papers, and when I walked behind her to go to the stairs, I saw what she was doing. She was using my dad's laptop. He's an architect, so his laptop is really, really important, and he doesn't let anyone use it. I thought to myself, what? But couples are weird, and guessed that she was the exception. She's also in the field. She saw me, smiled, and I went upstairs, got my thing, and came back down. I guess she thought I was going to my room for a while, because when I walked behind her again, she didn't notice me. She was seeing my dad's bank account, his Facebook, and his Instagram. She really had 3 things open at once, and I said, "Hey, you shouldn't be seeing that," and I took his laptop. She got red in the face and tried to make excuses like, "I was trying to close them. It's not what you think." Until she got mad and said that she was his partner, and I had no right to snatch things from her hands, and that I was being a jealous brat because daddy wasn't all mine anymore. She demanded an apology, and I told her to get out until my dad came back because I wasn't comfortable having her around anymore. She did leave, but called my dad crying and made a fake version of what happened. He came back mad, but after I explained what had happened, and he saw the living room footage, he knew I was telling the truth, apologized, and thanked me. My grandmother, on the other hand, is upset because she really loves Delia and said that I did act like a jealous daughter and that when you have a man, you have to make sure he's good, and agreed that I should apologize because I acted like a huge jerk. You're not the jerk, and it's amazing your dad has your back. Let your other family members be mad. You did the right thing for your father. Simple. Not the jerk. Delia was crossing a boundary of your dad's, his rule that no one should touch his laptop, and on top of that, she was clearly invading his privacy by going into his online accounts. You defended his boundary because you knew she was crossing it and her behavior wasn't okay. Husband wrongly accused me of stealing from him, so I returned the shoes that I bought for him. I'm 29, and my husband, who's 36, is the breadwinner of the family. I stay home with the kids who are preschool age. He pays for the mortgage, bills, household needs, food, kids' needs, etc. He has set a monthly budget for each category and handles getting everything done. Recently, he's become overwhelmed and told me to handle grocery shopping, but before he let me, he asked me to write a list of all the stuff we need so he could calculate the total and also so he'd have an idea how much I'll be spending when I take his credit card. I didn't have an issue with that because this way we'd watch our spending habits. However, he said I'm never allowed to get something that isn't on the list unless I'm paying for it some other way. On Friday, I was doing some grocery shopping as usual and saw that the store had some nice shoes on sale. The price was insanely low for this brand, and so I decided to grab a pair for my husband, thinking that he'd be happy with them since he needed new sneakers anyway. I bought them, and when I showed them to him, he flipped out on me, saying I made a huge mistake by buying something that wasn't on the list. I agreed with him, but I thought that since the shoes were for him, then it would be different. He said I messed up and shouldn't have bought those sneakers without even telling him. But in my defense, I said that the price was low, so it's not like I spent $100 on shoes. And also, I saw this as a great deal and wanted him to have those nice sneakers. He plainly said that what I did is considered stealing since he never consented to have those sneakers purchased and said that I'm being irresponsible with money. That is why I no longer have an income and my spending habits need a grip. I felt hurt by what he said. We argued about it for hours and he avoided speaking to me for the rest of the day. The next day, I went and returned the sneakers and took the money back. He got home in the evening and lost it when he found out I returned them. He said he couldn't believe how petty and childish I was to actually do this. I explained I was just correcting my mistake. He tried to contact the store and was told the sneakers were already sold. He even got angry with me, but I told him that he accused me of stealing from him when I was just trying to do a nice gesture for him. He yelled that I had a lot of nerve, calling what I did a nice gesture, while using his money to do it. I told him he had no right to yell at me after I corrected my mistake and gave back the money he accused me of stealing. He threw a fit, then went out with his friends and came home late at night still not talking to me. Did I mess up? Maybe I shouldn't have purchased them knowing they weren't on the list, but I just wanted him to have those sneakers and thought I was doing a nice gesture. Not the jerk. His money? Charge him for cooking, cleaning, laundry, general housekeeping, and childcare then. If you're a stay-at-home mom, he earns family income. This is not right. As for the argument that you stole his money to buy him a gift, it's beyond messed up. If you decide to stay with him, surely you should stop buying him birthday and Christmas presents. By his own logic, you are stealing from him. My mom took some time off work when my sister and I were very little and my dad worked. I was talking to him about it the other day, and he said, I may have been earning the money, but there's no way I could have dedicated that much time to my job if your mom hadn't been doing so much at home. She earned it just as much as I did. We're a team. You're supposed to be working together, OP. Ask yourself how often your husband acts like you're on opposite sides. Not the jerk. Not the jerk, but I'm seriously concerned for you. Almost all couples in your same situation with only one breadwinner share finances, so you should have your own credit card and be able to make reasonable purchases without discussion. Am I the jerk for refusing to work from home, so now people can no longer bring their dogs to the office? Hi, I'm 32, female. Here it goes. When everyone was working in the office, dogs were never even an option. Lockdown, shutdown, working from home. People trickled back in, and they're allowed to bring their dogs to ease the transition. My group stays back for another year. Everyone's finally called back to the office. I'm allergic to dogs, and the smell gives me migraines. Huge bummer, because I do like dogs, but it explains why in one foster home I was always feeling sick. Boss says we'll figure something out. People with their own offices are not willing to give them up. Boss tells me that maybe it's best if I work from home. I live in a tiny studio that barely fits my bed, and I have to sit on it or on my floor to have a workspace. I have one window. It's suffocating, and I was starting to go crazy living there during lockdown and working from home. So I say that if I can negotiate a raise that will be enough to help me move to a larger place, I will consider working from home. Boss takes that to their boss, comes back, and says unfortunately it's not in the budget. I say I'm not going back to working from home. Boss insists it couldn't be as bad as I'm saying, and that everyone has to make adjustments. Mind you, boss and most of my other coworkers live in houses that they own. Most have huge backyards, entire rooms to dedicate as an office, etc. so of course they don't think it's a big deal. I stand firm and remind them that someone can give me an office, but no one would. So unfortunately, everyone has to stop bringing the dogs to the office. Coworkers and other people in the building are saying I'm being selfish for not just taking the deal and going back to working from home because they'd all love to be allowed to. When I've told people about the tiny apartment and how I can't afford more, they say things like, just move back in with your parents, or stop buying Starbucks, and start doing Uber and Uber Eats after work, and move to the suburbs, as if I'm choosing to be in this position just to spite them. Others have been like, why can't you just take a Claritin and tell me I'm making up the smell causing migraines? Each of them has a suggestion about how I should just go out of my way to make all these changes, some of which I can't even do, just because people want to bring their dogs to the office. Am I really the jerk for this? Thanks for the responses so far. I appreciate the judgments, and they're giving me a lot to think about. Just as a note, due to circumstances I'd prefer to not get into too much, I cannot just go find a new job or a new place to live. These are things that are, for me, out of my control for the time being. Things will hopefully change in a few years. Not the jerk, but I'd start looking for a better job. People are jerks in an office, and they won't get over this. Your environment there is only going to get worse. Not the jerk. If they want to be with their dogs so much, one of them should make the sacrifice of giving up their office, or they should be given the option to work from home. Not the jerk. Dogs weren't permitted before lockdown. They shouldn't be permitted now. Yeah, it sucks leaving the fur babies at home, but it is what it is. I may be out of line with my thinking, but this could technically be considered discrimination because of a known medical condition. Maybe the threat of an EEOC complaint would straighten out your boss. Am I the jerk for letting my ex sign over his paternity rights before he knew the babies were his? Me, female 42, and my boyfriend, male 57, of 4 years split recently. We met while we were both going through divorces, and we got together about 6 months after mine was final. His was final before mine. We lived in different towns, so we sometimes would go a couple of weeks between visits due to distance, but it worked for us. He has 4 kids, a son who's 37, daughter who's 35, son who's 14, another son who's 12, and has shared custody of the 2 youngest with his second ex-wife. I share 2 kids, my son who's 18, my daughter who's 16, with my ex-husband. It just hasn't made any sense for us to move closer due to having to fight with exes to change custody agreements. I found out 8 months ago that I was pregnant. This was completely unexpected, as he had a vasectomy after his last son was born. Neither of us had any intention to have more kids, and I was not prepared to be pregnant at 41. I didn't even find out until I was almost 5 months along. I went to see him, and his reaction was, well, he broke things off with me and had some very choice words to call me. He refused to believe anything other than that I was seeing someone else and trying to pin this pregnancy on him. His ex-wife cheated on him often, which is why they split, so part of me understands his emotional reaction, but he spent the last 8 months ghosting me and has refused to even speak to me. The babies, twins, a boy and a girl, were born 3 months ago. I do not need his financial help, but I decided to file for child support so he would do a paternity test. Once his friend said he took the test, but before we had the results, which I never needed, he was the only person I had been with, I had him served with papers to sign over his parental rights and all financial responsibility as well. Unsurprisingly, he signed the papers without hesitation. We got the paternity test results back, and now he's blowing up my phone and showing up at my house angry at me and saying I'm the jerk because I refuse to entertain the idea of getting back together or moving closer to him. He also says I tricked him into signing over his rights. I am aware he may be able to fight me as it is recent. Some of my friends and family are telling me I am the jerk for doing this to him, and others say they understand why I did. So, dear Reddit, am I the jerk? Edit. I live in Colorado. We did have to go to court to relinquish his rights, but it was a very short visit. He did not deny paternity. He admitted to never wanting anything to do with the babies, that he had not met them, and that the distance between us would make it difficult to co-parent. My lawyer brought up his felony, that he had abandoned the babies, the fact that I have both financial means and family support. The judge agreed termination was acceptable. I will apologize because after speaking to a few people, I'm learning it is rarely this smooth when my lawyer made it sound and seem so easy. I do know he can fight and possibly get his rights back, and I'm undecided on if I would fight him on that. I am absolutely willing to co-parent with the man. I am not willing to forget what happened and just start dating again. Not the jerk. Why would you get back together with someone who accused you of cheating? He has nobody to blame but himself. And if he signed over rights and the kids weren't his, the papers wouldn't have meant a darn thing. Sounds to me like his family is giving him crap and now he wants to save face. OP. I do believe he really felt there was zero chance of the babies being his. I was 100% fine with a paternity test when I found out I was pregnant because of course with a vasectomy he was going to have concerns and that I could have dealt with. But ghosting me was childish and left me alone when I was feeling very vulnerable. Now he wants to be a family. He is a good dad and I would be okay with him being in the twins' lives, but I don't want to pass off kids every other week for the next 18 years.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.